Hi everyone, so today we have Crytek to talk about. This is a story that's been developing for the last week and I've been following quite closely, but was waiting really until we saw something fairly definitive that couldn't be denied quite so easily. Now, what's happened really with Crytek is, as a studio, they've kind of expanded very rapidly over the last year, and unfortunately their games, specifically Ryse Son of Rome, has not met financial expectations in the sell-through. Ryse Son of Rome, you might remember, is an Xbox One exclusive, so it was always going to have a difficult time. Essentially, not a huge number of units out there at launch for the install base, plenty of other games for gamers to choose from, and it didn't quite hit the critics or where they love. Now, personally, I think Ryse Son of Rome was an absolute legend of a game. Really, really fantastically well done. And whilst it split the fan base, sometimes that's the best thing for a new property. You don't kind of want everybody to come on side straight away and have those expectations for your second game, but obviously it helps you sell through. Now, what's really kind of spurred on the Crytek problem, as it were, is that it's not been able to pay wages on time and potentially even in full if the rumours are true. This has led, unfortunately, to the UK development team working on Homefront Revolution quitting en masse. Over 100 of them, by the sounds of it, have walked out, saying they, quite frankly, will not work for free. Who can blame them? Now, where this is leaving Crytek is in a terrible muddle. Homefront is shaping up to look like a fantastic game, to be published out there by Deep Silver, a publishing house that has really made waves over the last couple of years with some pretty good quality titles, and seemingly understanding how to actually market these games out there successfully. They've put a lot of money and obviously time into getting Homefront ready for launch later this year, but with the development team walking out, presumably that development has now ceased almost entirely. But that might be somewhat scuppered by the fact that Sony is very interested in acquiring Crytek. What we don't know with Sony is whether they're only interested in the Cry engine or whether they're also interested in picking up some IP at the same time for some new first-party exclusives. Certainly it would be a very good defensive move on Sony's part, picking up potentially the world's greatest development studio. You couldn't ever see them picking up someone like Epic and Unreal Engine, for instance, but here is an opportunity for them to take an engine which is looking quite remarkable on next-gen consoles and is already out there proving its worth. For Microsoft's part, it all comes down to how much they really want that Ryse Son of Rome IP and whether they're willing to put Crytek to the wall to do it. It seems that Microsoft are adamant they want that Ryse Son of Rome IP and they're only really willing to pay Crytek for development time, not for, obviously, co-ownership. Ryse Son of Rome may very well be tied to an exclusive with Microsoft systems anyway, so Sony may never be able to pick that particular title up. What we really have to bear in mind here is Crytek may very well have another option available to it. There has been rumour, in fact Crytek themselves have said that they're hoping to sign an investment deal imminently that will hopefully unleash a large chunk of cash into their development pipeline and allow them to pay wages and so on. What we don't know is when that deal might be signed or whether that deal has now been put in jeopardy with one of its development teams simply walking out en masse. The next few months for Crytek are really going to be make or break, and I can't help but feel that the Crytek we know and love may not be the same again after this period of time. It does seem that Crytek may very well find itself broken up into a number of smaller studios and sold on. The strength of the Crytek engine and the strength of its IP portfolio makes them a hot target for takeover by one of the bigger players, especially a player who's willing to invest potentially $500,000 into getting those games currently slated out into the real world for sale. Whoever manages to pull that off is going to make quite a large amount of money out of Crytek's IP. It's just a shame, in my opinion. I don't think it's going to be the current Crytek team that will be working on it all. For my mind, Crytek will end up being broken up. That does seem to be the only reality now. So what do you think? Is this the death of one of the great development teams in the world, or do you think this is just a small bump in the road for Crytek? Do let me know in the comments, and do please throw a like on this video.